And I have the prescription for you. I have found a cure to one of the most common diseases in the United States. The solution is as simple as this: sugar. Which sugar? Well, I'll tell you about that later. But let's get back to what we're talking about here. This is Lone Star Politics, so we're talking about local and state issues. The state legislature finished up a couple of weeks ago, and one of the biggest things that the legislature was dealing with was the huge budget deficit, $27 billion. Texas was short $27 billion that it needed to operate on the levels that it used to keep funding the same for schools, for roads, for public education, for Medicare. Yes, we have state Medicare. Yes, we have state-sponsored medicine in the state of Texas. So in order to fund all of these things, the state legislature had to make some difficult decisions. It was either cut spending or raise taxes. Now, considering that almost everyone, the vast majority of legislators in the state of Texas were Republicans, what did they do? Well, they slashed spending. And one of the things they slashed was education spending. This was the first time in Texas history that the state legislature did not fund an increase in students. Texas is a growing population. In fact, it's one of the fastest growing states in the United States. We're the only ones, most of the new jobs are being created here. People are moving to Texas. As a result, there are more and more children in our schools. So, we would need to increase school funding just to keep the level the same per student. We didn't do that this year. We assumed zero growth. So what are the ramifications of this going to be? Only time will tell. President Bill Powers, who was president of the University of Texas at Austin, he sent out an email to the university saying what these budget cuts will do. He said that it cut, I believe, 36% of our state funding, and state funding is about 13%, or state funding last year was 14% of the budget of the University of Texas, and this will knock it down to like 13 or 11. But there are going to be other cuts. The other cuts include financial aid. Now, the University of Texas prides itself on being affordable to those who don't have means, those who need financial aid. Those funds may not be available in the coming years with this budget cut. Hopefully, there will be some outside funding. Hopefully, those that ordinarily would apply for financial aid can apply for some outside scholarships and get their own funding so that they can attend college. Ideally, everyone would still get to come to UT that qualify to come, but with these budget cuts, who knows? So that was big news on the university. I think it would be interesting if we cut staff at the university, specifically administrative staff that may be unnecessary. And what about security? Austin is an extremely safe city. Extremely safe. What if we cut security staff at the University of Texas? We have lots of police officers patrolling around. They have their own cars. They're not even just on foot walking around the campus. They're patrolling. What if we cut them? Would we see a spike in crime? Would we see a decrease in crime? I don't know. I certainly like the idea of having the police there to be there in case of incidents of violence at night, specifically for females walking back from labs and buildings and so forth, because they are the most susceptible to violence on campus, especially from sexual predators. So I'd like the police there for that. But during the day, I don't know if they're really necessary. I mean, look at the last time we had lots of police on campus. It was the shooting on campus, which was a crazy person shooting in the air who then went into the library and shot himself. By the time the police got there, he was dead, nobody was hurt, and then the police shut down campus, even though there was no longer any threat. They didn't know that at the time, but they shut down campus, and classes stopped, and basically we had the SWAT team from the city of Austin and lots of Austin police officers and lots of University of Texas police officers roaming around campus. That's the last time we really, quote, needed them. And in retrospect, they didn't do anything. We were already safe. There was nothing they could do. So I just wanted to ask you, listener and viewer, is the amount of police that we have at the University of Texas necessary? Now, the reason I ask this is that about, a little bit less than a year ago, the end of October last year, I was involved in an incident with the University of Texas Police at a University of Texas football game. I went there dressed in my apparel as a Longhorn Hellraiser. That's a group of students at the university who paint their faces in orange and white and you go to the games and are very loud, spirited fans. I was having a conversation with a gentleman around the concession stands, and the police, for some reason, felt the need to interfere in the conversation, and the policeman pointed at me, said, "What do you got in your pockets?" And I had just filled up water bottles there because we do a lot of yelling at the football games, a lot of cheering, and we need water, and it's hot. So I filled up the water bottles. I was on my way back to my seats when I was talking to this gentleman. And so this police officer stopped us in the middle of our conversation and said, "What do you have in your pockets?" And I didn't answer him. And then he looked at the gentleman I was talking to. He said, "Hey, do you know this guy?" The guy said, "No." And the police officer said, "All right, leave then." When in reality, the gentleman I was talking to stopped me to comment me on my face paint and my uniform. But before he asked the gentleman to leave, he then asked him to empty his pockets. So here we have a police officer stopping a conversation between two people who decided to be in a conversation. It's not like I was holding him there, preventing him from leaving. Police officer comes by, asks me what's in my pockets. I basically refuse to respond. He says, "Do you know this man? Clearly, you don't want to be associated with me right now because I'm being accosted by the police." He says, "No, I don't." The police officer then unconstitutionally asked him to empty his pockets. That's an illegal search. He's not suspected of doing anything wrong. And then he's like, "All right, get out of here." So there goes the only witness to what had happened. And then I proceeded to ask this police officer about the Constitution and about no refusal weekends. Now, for those of you who don't know what no refusal weekends are, on weekends with very high suspicion of drunk driving and high incidence of drunk driving, for example, New Year's Eve weekend, 4th of July weekend, which we just had, Halloween weekend, which it was that time, we have what are called no refusal weekends, where if you refuse a breathalyzer in the city of Austin, there is a judge waiting to rubber stamp a warrant to allow the police to forcibly withdraw your blood without your consent. According to state law, you can only draw blood when there is an accident or there is a child in the car. An accident with somebody hurt or there's a child in the car. Otherwise, you have no legal authority to draw blood unless there's a warrant, which was recently ruled in a court case that you could get a warrant to take someone's blood. So now these certain weekends, there are just judges waiting to rubber stamp the warrants so police can forcibly withdraw blood for those who refuse a breathalyzer. I was asking the police officer about this. He didn't like it. He was unhappy that I was asking him these questions. He asked me how old I was. I cited the Fifth Amendment for saying that'd be self-incriminating, even though I was well over 21 and had not broken any laws. And he asked me what was in my pockets. I think I cited the Fourth Amendment, that was an illegal search. And eventually he escorted me out of the game, but not before taking my water bottles from me. He took my personal property from me and then asked me to leave the game. Not asked me to leave, told me to leave the game, and basically took from me the $50 that I paid to get into the game. So I walked around the stadium and I was looking for my water bottles. I couldn't find them. I then asked a police officer who was at the gate. I said, "Listen, I was just escorted out of the game and my water bottles, I think, were around this area. Have you seen them?" He said, "No, but I can call the officer who escorted you out and see if he knows where they are." I said, "All right, that'd be fine." And so when this officer comes back, Officer Roberto Gonzalez, he's the one who I'd been interacting with. When he comes back, he's very upset with me. He's yelling at me. He's like, "What did I tell you? What did I tell you? I told you not to come back." It's like, "Sir, I didn't want to come back. I'm not coming into the stadium. I just want my water." And I repeated that I just wanted my water. And, he was yelling at me and approaching me, so I was backing up. And according to him, I was then stumbling and acting in a very drunken manner, at which point he placed me under arrest for public intoxication. That's right. I, a 28-year-old, almost 29, was arrested for public intoxication at a University of Texas football game. Now, what happened with that? Well, the official criminal case is still pending, but the university actually pressed charges against me. Well, I decided to fight that because I did not like the idea of allowing the police to basically do unconstitutional searches and seizures. He searched my person, he seized my property. There was no reasonable suspicion that I had done anything wrong. I mean, maybe you could say I brought in water to the game, but that's really, if that's my biggest crime, I really think our police should be doing more important things at football games than finding out who brought in renegade water. So I fought it, and I represented myself against two university officials, and I won. So there was no evidence to suggest that I was drunk to the level that I was endangering myself or others. But that didn't stop the police officer from arresting me, confiscating my ticket, my water, and basically taking my evening away from me because I did not get out of jail until after midnight. So my question to you is this what we want university police doing? How valuable are they to the university? Now, I've had no problems with Austin police, and in general, I've had great interactions with the University of Texas police. I most commonly interact with them at sporting events, and usually they're excited just to be working at the event. You know, they're happy to see us, and they're pretty cool. But this officer was not. I don't think he was fulfilling his duties as an officer, and I think police officers like him do a disservice to those in uniform because those few bad apples can really poison the whole bushel. So I just want to throw that out there as potentially one way of reducing costs here at the University of Texas is reducing unnecessary security. Another example of unnecessary security was the debate on campus about concealed carry on campus. Now, I know this is a very scary topic. Students talking about their right, their Second Amendment right to protect themselves in campus buildings. As of right now, you can walk right outside the buildings and legally carry a gun, but you can't walk inside the buildings. Even though the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia be necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Even though it says we have a right to bear arms, which is wear, we have a right to wear arms in order to protect ourselves, for some reason the university is allowed to say, no, you don't, not on this campus, even though it's a public campus. And so this debate, this political debate about our constitutional rights and safety on campus, which is a very important debate to have, there were several police officers sent to the debate. Now, I think if we were discussing women's health issues like abortion or the sonogram bill, or maybe we were discussing immigration at on campus, I don't know if the police officers would have been there, but there they were, perhaps to make sure everyone felt safe. I don't know if they thought that those that advocate arming yourselves on campus would be expected to bring a gun illegally there, but there they were again. So I just feel that there is a lot of waste concerning security on campus, and that could be a potential way of saving a few dollars right here at the University of Texas without sacrificing the computers, the new technology that we need to be a first-rate university in the classroom, and the great professors that we have. We have phenomenal professors here, and as President Powers said, we need to give those great professors their earned pay raises to ensure that we can remain competitive. We need to think about how we spend money at the federal level. Maybe raising the ceiling might be appropriate in the short run so we can figure out how to start slashing, but we really need to start talking about where we are going to cut. There are four basic components of the federal budget. We got Medicare, Social Security, those are the biggest two. It's not defense. I wish it were defense, then we could just advocate and cutting defense and we'd all be fine. We got Medicare and Social Security, defense is third, and then there's everything else. We don't want to cut Social Security and Medicare because the elderly in this country rely upon those. They've worked their whole lives paying into the system, and many of them are dependent upon it.